Welcome to the Age of Intellect. The people emerge from the wild with dreams of changing the world. The more they learn, the higher they climb. That's great wisdom from Epic to, I think we can all relate to that in real life. I think the more you learn, the higher you climb. But anyways, let's talk about this new patch. And there's a lot to go through. I've already released a video on this phase hero, so you can check that out in the link below. I'm not going to touch on her really too much, maybe when we look at the cards, but that's about it. You got a cool skin, but then again, you can check that stuff out for yourself. The main thing we've got in this patch is hero updates. We've got a couple skins, the Greystone tier 3 being the main one, I guess, and now that they've changed him, I'm not so sure I'm getting this one, but it still looks like a pretty decent skin. We've got 36 card updates, and some of them are pretty big, so we'll talk a bit about that. Then we've got events like this Age of Intellect event, where you can unlock this banner to earn Sluggo, which is on phases back, and new features like the monthly vault reward and a golden key, which, you know, hopefully means I don't keep getting more fucking rep. And then we've got a community tab in game being added, so maybe you can see, you know, my videos or other YouTubers, tournaments that's upcoming. But for now, let's take a look at the full release notes. There's been huge gameplay changes. They've completely changed how shields work. Shields now absorb mitigated damage, previously absorbed unmitigated damage. This means shields behave as temporary health and are affected by armor in the same way. So what that means in plain simple terms is, if you built armor, previously your shields never took into account for the armor. So let's take an easy example. Say you have armor that mitigates 50% damage, right? Your shield has 100, you have 100 shield, for example, and you take damage of 100. Previously, your shield would be wiped out, right? Because 100 damage incoming on your 100 shield would wipe out everything. But now, if you have armor, that 50% armor mitigation means that that 100 incoming damage now only wipes out 50 of your shield, which is actually a big change. That makes Muriel a lot more viable. That makes Feng Mao a lot more viable. I'm pretty sure that buffs Honor the Pure as well. So any hero with a shield automatically is now higher than they were prior to this patch, which is pretty good. I felt Muriel was pretty useless, if I'm honest. You want to take, you know, Deca, Narbash, these kind of heroes with the CC. But now with the shields being pretty strong, in my opinion, I think Muriel might see a comeback. There was also changes to the core. The core encounter has been reworked to allow for a more consistent damage output and to encourage destroying multiple inhibitors before pushing to destroy the core. No longer splits damage between all targets in radius, now deals 110 basic damage to all enemies in radius. Attack speed is reduced depending on how many inhibitors are destroyed. So obviously you destroy one, it's got its highest attack speed. You destroy all three, it's got the lowest attack speed. There has also been a lot of changes to the jungle. They say we've updated melee jungle minion behavior so that they are a lot more difficult to kite and avoid their damage entirely. They will now more reliably hit players who are a short distance away from them. As a result of the change, we've adjusted the damage and reward levels for fighting jungle camps. Reduce white jungle minion damage per attack to 6 from 7, increase white jungle minion CP bounty to 85 from 73, and increased white jungle minion amber link CP contribution to 35 from 30. So essentially what they did was they nerfed the damage that white camps do, but they increased the value of them in not only the CP but their contribution to the amber link. Now I actually like the fact that kiting the minions was like a skill. Like, I feel like they're like taking away the skill that was required. Not everyone would kite jungle camps, and not everyone would kite them well, but those that could kite them better than, say, the opposing jungler would always have an advantage, and that's what makes this game a skill-based game. But if they make it even more difficult to kite, to the point where really can anyone kite them, then you're kind of reducing any skill aspect, because then people are just going to stand there and hit them. But if they just made it more difficult to kite and you can still kite them, you just have to get good, then that's fine with me. The gold buff has been replaced with a gold variant of the river bugs, grants 300 CP when killed. I'm hoping, well, I mean Epic are hoping that people will now actually bother to kill the gold buff. The green buff has increased damage reflect to 20 from 15, so a buff to the green buff, but they've reduced explosion base damage to 80 from 100 and reduced explosion damage per hero level to 13 from 15, so a damage buff to the reflect, but they've reduced the explosion base damage and the damage you gain per level. It's not huge, but I think the green buff was kind of too strong early game. So reducing their hero level and the base damage is probably a good idea. Raptor camps have been changed again. They've changed the respawn time to 5 minutes from 4 minutes. And they've reduced the Raptor CP bounty to 650 from 800. I still think they're relevant, but maybe now this is to stop the snowballing nature. Because if you got 2 Raptor camps, and by 2 I mean you got the first 3 Raptors and then you got the next 3 Raptors right after that, you could just really snowball the game. And I'm guessing that they wanted to stop this snowballing nature. Orb Prime, they've increased the duration of the Orb Prime buff to 150 seconds from 120 seconds. I found Orb Prime did run out really quickly, so I'm glad that they've increased it by 30 seconds. I think 150 seconds sits right with me. Hero updates. I'm not going to talk about phase because I've made a video on that, and I suggest you check that out in the description below. So Aurora, the Cryosesm. Cryosesm corrected an issue which caused Cryosesm to deal unintended additional damage. Okay, I didn't know that was a thing. Feng Mao, Reaping Dash, damage bonus increased to 35%, 70%, 105%, 140% damage bonus from 10%, 25%, 40, 55%. So that is a huge increase in damage. That's what, like triple the damage increase at level 3 almost? That is insane. So now that's going to emphasize on comboing your Reaping Dash with your basic attack and all this stuff. I think that makes Feng Mao, I think Feng was in a pretty decent spot. Some people said he needed a buff, some people said he needed a nerf. If anything, I would have reduced the cooldown on his hamstring, but I think this is fine. And the ability can no longer crit, but I don't think any smart Feng Mao player was building crit anyway, so I think that's fine. The gadget speed gate has seen a movement speed increase to 200 from 125 and now decays over the effect duration. Okay, that's something I've noticed a lot as I browsed through the patch notes briefly, was that they want movement speed to kind of decay over time. So what it would be is you would start, say, at 200 movement speed, and then if the movement speed lasted 2 seconds, it would decay at a rate. So whatever the rate decayed at, it would mean you would start at 200, but you wouldn't be finishing at 200, you'd be finishing at, like, say 150 for example, because of the decay. So that's something that Muriel has and that FaZe also has. So it's interesting to see that they've added this mechanic. Greystone, they've just added his Novaborn Greystone tier 3 skin, but we'll look at that in a bit. Historic has been reworked. It used to provide him bonus health and basic armor, but now every 9, 7, 5 and 3 seconds, 3 obviously being level 4, Greystone will block 100% of the damage from the next basic damage instance that hits him, which 100% is actually really good. Say you're getting hit by a carry, every 3 seconds that carry is doing 0 damage to you, and late game carries do a lot of damage. So I'm interested to see how this, how this affects Greystone. Like I said, the shield buff makes Feng Mao easily more attractive, like makes him a better pick compared to Greystone in my opinion. Obviously there's a lot more changes that goes on and we have to play, but from that I think that's moved Feng Mao above Greystone for me personally. Iggy and Scorch. Now this guy is getting a rework, but they have changed his flame turrets. Turrets now have 200, 350, 500 and 650 health instead of pips. That means you actually have to do 650 damage to his turrets before they get destroyed, and turrets take 60% reduced ability damage. This is because if they didn't add this, what you would be doing is you just use a Howie Q to destroy his turrets, or a Gideon Q, which would kind of be stupid because then you just get rid of his turrets instantly. Lieutenant Bellica, probably one of the more balanced heroes I feel personally, but they changed her Void Drone. Base damage reduced to 30, 50, 70, 90, from 60, 80, 100, 120. Power scaling reduced to 0.376 from 0.5. Now has 200, 375, 500 and 725 health instead of pips. I think 725 health level 4 is pretty good, and now takes 60% reduced ability damage. So basically the last two were what they did to Iggy turrets. It seems they want to move away from this pips and kind of give everything health. I think they also changed wards, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Now I mentioned Kallari was getting a huge change in a previous video, and I did talk about it, but we'll talk about it a bit here as well. Crippling Dagger has been moved to the right mouse button or R1 and is now a quick cast ability. If you're unfamiliar with what a quick cast ability is, it works similar to a Richter pull. You press down your right mouse button or you hold down the R1 trigger, and then you release it, and then the ability will fire. So you hold it down and that allows you to equip the dagger and then aim, and then you release it when you want to fire it. Hopefully it makes it a lot easier to hit. They've also increased the base damage, which is nice because then it allows you to assassinate those targets to get away on low health without having to use your ultimate. I believe the knife has a 3000 unit range, which is pretty good as well. Backflip has been removed. His new ability is Shadow Dance, which is on E, and passively provides bonus health regeneration while Kallari is in the shadow plane. That is 3, 6, 9, and 12, so that's 12 health regeneration per second while Kallari is in the shadow plane at level 4. It allows Kallari to jump up to 2 additional times after jumping, in the same way as Backflip did. So this is bound to the spacebar. So I believe that you would jump and then you could double jump, which would mean you can jump 3 times. The cooldown of triple jump is reduced to 16, 12, 10, 8 seconds, which is fine. That's a 1 second decrease at level 4. Activating the triple jump costs no mana, and I mentioned this before. I think this is really good. Having it on a cooldown with no mana cost means that Kallari basically uses all her mana on her dagger, ult, and Q, which is the Shadow Walk. Shadow Walk now automatically activates when Kallari drops below 35% health. This effect can only trigger once every 60 seconds and only triggers if the damage dealt comes from enemy heroes. Now this is a pretty good tool. It makes Kallari more elusive. You deal a lot of damage to her, instantly goes into the shadow plane, you have no idea where she is, and when she comes out of the shadow plane, remember she does that bonus damage, so this can make for some really good outplays. Death Sentence. It now has added a minus 250 slow while Kallari is channeling Death Sentence to her intended victim. This should help her line up more when she arrives. So the way this works, at least in my head, is that you press your alt button, you're looking at the targets, you select whatever target, but as you are flying across, that target is getting a 250 slow. That way you know where you're landing and you know where you're going to hit that target. Morogesh didn't see any big changes. They the base ability was reduced to 20 from 21.4. Sorry, the base ability armor was reduced to 20 from 21.4, and ability armor per level reduced to 0.75 from 0.81. I think that's just more to bring her in line. And I think she was the most like tanky caster, as in she got the most ability armor and basic armor for free. And you know, when you're playing a hero that's positionally based, I don't know if you should be giving her that much free armor when, you know, you kind of want her to be sort of, if you're going to give her lock-on abilities, kind of give her something she has to work for, make her work for good positioning, and giving her armor is not the way to do that. So I'm glad they made this change. Muriel General. As a reminder, all shields are now treated as extra health and benefit from target resistances, so that's already a buff to Muriel in itself. Alacrity, the movement speed increased to 150, 175, 200, 225, which is a huge increase considering level 4 give you an 80 movement speed, and now level 1 gives you 150 movement speed. But remember, as I mentioned, movement speed now decays over its 2-second duration. So that's an interesting change. You get a huge burst at the start, but as the seconds start to tick, you slow down. Murdoch. Now, this is my guy. This is the first hero I ever played, and I want to give you some background because I think it would kind of make sense to, like, I want to give you background because then you can see why Epic probably made these changes. And I'm not saying I agree or disagree with them or whatever, but the way they designed Murdoch was for him to be like a space cop, right? And what do space cops do? They pursue their victims. They're constantly chasing after something. They're in pursuit of something, essentially. And when I played Murdoch way back in the early access, he had a passive that gave him out of combat movement speed, right? So what would happen is you would shoot someone and then you would stop and then they would run and then you would chase after them, and you would always catch up, right? Because you had that out of combat movement speed, and it made, you know, he could really, it was like a real cop, right? He would catch up to you and then lay down the fucking law. And it kind of, you know, it kind of moved away from that, really. So I think this is them trying to get back to the roots of what they intended for Murdoch, which makes sense to me. Whether or not I agree with what they've done is another story. So they've removed Move Along and they've removed Static Trap. Buckshot has been reworked. It's been moved from Q to right mouse button. Enemies damaged by Buckshot are pushed if they are within 700 units of Murdoch. up to a maximum distance of 700 units away from Murdoch. So I think you just fire your buckshot and it also pushes them away. Basically, they've kind of just thrown in move along into the buckshot. I don't know how I feel about that. I think it's okay, I guess, because, you know, use your Q to deal damage on an enemy and then it pushes them away. You can still, like, shoot them. The new ability is called Hot Pursuit, and it's a passive. It grants an additional 150, 100, 150, 200, 250 movement speed when running at visible, critically wounded enemies within 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 units. Well, okay. I do not like the fact that they've put passive abilities on Murdoch. I don't like giving carries or any hero that I think requires skill to play, then dumbing them down to give them passive. There was great outplay potential with move along and static trap. Throw down a trap, knock the enemy into the trap, they're rooted, you can deal damage. That to me is skill. Being able to have a passive that basically gives you movement speed when an enemy is critically wounded kind of seems meh. Yeah, you can chase them down, but then I don't know. I just don't like having passives on a carry. Like, having too many passives in this game is just annoying. Just give every hero one passive and call it a day. Stop reworking heroes and giving them more passives. It's my opinion. You might feel differently. And regardless of how good the passives actually are, I just don't like seeing so many passives on one hero. The new ability is Shots Fired. It's another passive. Grants Murdoch's next basic attack bonus range. 15, 30, 45, 60 basic penetration every 10, 8, 6, and 4 seconds. Okay, so he gets bonus attack, so he gets basic attack bonus range and basic penetration. That's actually pretty nice. 60 penetration is pretty big. That means that, you know, what you would usually be doing is using your Q, buckshot, to penetrate the enemy and then dealing damage. But now that you've got this passive that every 4 seconds you deal basic attack damage that has 60 basic penetration, it's pretty nice. This shot can miss, and if it does, the cooldown is consumed. So I'm guessing you need to have a really good indicator epic to tell us when that is off cooldown. But I don't know. I don't know how I feel about Murdoch. I think this one I have to play. I don't like that they've given him these passive abilities. Yes, the shots fired isn't really a passive. Like, you kind of still have to work for it. Same with the Hot Pursuit, I guess. But I did really like Move Along and Static Trap. That's been a part of his kit since day one. And reworking him, I don't know if he really needed a rework. Was he in that bad of a spot? I didn't think so. Yes, he was probably the worst carry after Grim. But I mean, was he that bad? Anyways, let's move on to Narbash. The only change to Narbash was his March movement is increased to 125, 150, 175, 200 from what it previously was. The duration reduced to 2.5 seconds from 3 seconds, and movement speed now decays over its duration, so something I mentioned before that Epic are doing. Richter, Shock Therapy, cooldown reduced to 12 seconds at all levels from 21, 18, 15 to 12. That's actually a pretty big change. That's pretty significant at all the other levels apart from level 4. I think that makes him pretty strong against heroes like Revenant, where you can silence him and then bam, just go ham on him. Shinbi, all kill. Shinbi can now move while casting, okay. Wolf stack duration increased to 10 seconds from 7 seconds. I like that. I found like 7 seconds was a bit too short. Rushing Beat. Shinbi will no longer lose the ability to recast Rushing Beat after being stunned or silenced. When are they gonna learn? If you get stunned, please, the ability should go on a short cooldown. I feel like if you stun a hero and then the ability just fucking instantly allows you to cast it again, what is the point? Line tempo, projectile speed increased. I think that's fine. I think line tempo needed a bit of increase, if I'm honest. Steel. Now this guy has been good, he's been bad, he's been good again, he's been absolute trash as of late. But this rework probably does help him. Force Shield has been removed, Bulwark has been reworked. Steel now deploys a smaller attached Force Shield as an extension of his shield while channeling Bulwark. Duration increased to 4, 5, 6, 7 from 4 seconds at all levels. I'm guessing that is just Force Shield, just like a bigger shield. That means he absorbs more damage, I guess. I kind of have to see this one in game. They also give him a new ability. Ablative Armor is a passive and grants Steel 4 stacks of 50, 65, 80, 95 ability armor for a total of 200, 260, 320 and 380 ability armor. Taking damage removes 1 stack. Steel gains 1 stack every 6, 5, 4, 3 seconds. This timer is reset whenever he takes new instances of ability damage. Okay, so allow me to explain how this works. Let's assume Steel is max level, so he is level 4 on this ability. Every 3 seconds when he hasn't taken any ability damage, he's getting 95 ability armor. So he gets 95, then he gets another 95 and another 95, and he keeps going and keeps on going every 3 seconds until he hits 380 ability armor, at which point in time he is ready to go ham. He can go fight. But the way it works is he takes ability damage, he loses 95 ability armor. Takes another ability damage, then he loses another stack, which is 95 ability armor. So basically it counts up to 380, then it counts down to 380 as he takes damage, but it still makes him a huge counter to casters, and I think we really need that. So teams running double caster are going to find it really tricky to deal with a Steel, and I think that the only person that can really deal with a Steel now is basic attack heroes, or so basically carries. The Fae, Harvest Nettles. Consecutive hits on the same targets within 9 seconds deal an additional 15% damage per tick, stacking up to a maximum of 60% bonus damage per hit. It's not a huge change to Fae, but it's a significant one if you can keep them within your Harvest Nettles. Yin, Lash Kick, range reduced to 750 units from 950 units. Windburn mana cost increased to 40 from 20, cooldown increased as well, so a significant nerf to Yin. She was just crazy strong late game, and I think this will help bring her more in line with other carries. Okay, that was a quite a lot to go through. A lot of changes to heroes. Kalari definitely making her more viable, I think. Steel definitely coming back into the meta. Muriel, the shield changes are super strong. Feng Mao again benefits from that shield. Greystone changes, not sure how good that is, but because of the Feng Mao change with the shield, I think Feng Mao is now going to be a higher pick. But it makes a lot more other heroes viable in the offlane, like Steel, Bellica as well. So all around, I think that these changes are good. But I think the more interesting is the card changes. So let's have a look at those. Card update. We're still in the process of a full rework of the card system planned for 2017. This release continues our trend of updating the existing card set to reflect our general direction for the future. This includes several reworks of niche cards alongside updated functionality and balance across the full library. Health. Health per CP has been increased to 60 from 50 health. I presume this is to kind of increase that time to kill. They said that time to kill they found was too short and things died a bit too quickly, and you know, they kind of want to increase that, so increasing health by 10 is a decent change. Not sure they needed to do this, but I guess I can see why they did it. Basic armor per CP has been increased to 8 from 7. Ability armor per CP has been increased to 6 from 4. Okay, so it's clear that that's the direction they want to take. They want to make things a bit more tanky. Probably make the tanks want to invest more into armor and health, rather than, you know, some tanks going a lot more, but tanks would tend to go, you know, wouldn't favor armor because they felt like, oh, you can just blow everything up. But now if they increase the value you're getting from them, then they, you know, it's kind of encouraging you to get armor and health. The weekly card pack, who gives a fuck about that? Okay, the first card that got changed is Hemorrhage. It's been reworked. It's now a universal affinity. It costs 6 points, gives you 5% lifesteal and 11 attack speed. Its active is Berserk. For 6 seconds, gain 44 attack speed and 80 movement speed, but take an additional 15% damage. Costs 50 mana and is on a 35-second cooldown. That's an interesting card. I'm not sure who I would use this card on. 5% lifesteal and 11 attack speed as base, but then you get 44 attack speed and 80% movement speed. I don't know, maybe you would want it on Sparrow when you ult, but the increase in damage is quite a lot, so I'm not too sure I would use this on. The first hero that does come to mind is Sparrow, but I haven't put too much thought into it. Nanoplasm has been reworked and is now universal affinity. It costs 6 points, it gives you 6 power and 60 max mana. Its passive is Spell Vamp. Abilities heal for 20% of the damage dealt to enemy heroes, 5% against minions. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Spell Vamp, I've basically just explained it there. Spell Vamp gives you it's like lifesteal for abilities, so you get health back based on how much damage you do for abilities. So in Paragon, it's clear that Spell Vamp is 20% of damage dealt to enemy heroes and 5% against minions. I think Nanoplasm is going to be picked up on a lot of casters, that is without a doubt. Tainted Magic has been reworked and is now a universal affinity. It costs 7 points, has 12 power and 0.3 mana regen. It has a new effect called Spell Burn. Dealing ability damage to enemy heroes applies a damage over time effect that deals ability damage equal to 8% of the target's current health over 3 seconds. This effect cannot stack, but consecutive damage instances refresh the duration. I think Spell Burn is actually something Paragon needed. It kind of exists in other MOBAs from what I've heard, although I don't play any other MOBAs, so I can't confirm that. But I like this. I think that it's going to be a pickup on other casters. I think, you know, you might see on Iggy as well, because, you know, you can constantly apply the burn, because it would constantly refresh on each tick of the each dot damage of the turret. And I don't know, I think we're gonna see this card quite a bit. Maybe you would see it on you know, like how it's Gideon gadget, just because, you know, 8% of the target's current health means that they can counter really tanky heroes that build a lot of health, like Sevrogs that build a lot of health. That's just my thoughts anyways. Scout's Ward now has 150 health instead of pips and takes 60% reduced ability damage. Shadow's Ward now has 225 health instead of pips and takes 60% reduced ability damage. So they've gone away from this fact that you hit wards 4 times and they die. Now you actually have to deal damage based on how much damage you do, then that's how quickly you can destroy the ward. Now these two cards got a huge change, and I think they will be a big pickup on supports. Circlet of Mana and a Circlet of Health. Circlet of Mana has been reworked and the maxed passive added. Mana Regen Aura is now applied globally, so yes, every single one of your teammates will receive that mana buff. And Circlet of Health does the same thing. Once maxed, Health Regen Aura will now be applied globally, so that's a must pick on all supports. Everyone that's playing supports, I think you have to pick this card up. Armorvore. Change stat to attack speed from attack penetration. I'm pretty sure attack penetration isn't a thing Epic, but oh, okay. Increased mana restored per basic attack from 6 to 8. I actually like that. Mana restored is nice. I think that could be good on Iggy depending on how mana intensive he is. But I'm pretty sure it was mana on kill, right? Increased mana restored per basic attack. Because like if you just basic attack the minion, you would just keep getting mana back. I can't remember if that was on kill, but if this is if you get 6 mana back per basic attack, I think that's pretty good on Iggy. Then you wouldn't have to build too much mana, and then you wouldn't be countered hard by Bellica, which is pretty much a must pick in most comp games and is pretty much always banned anyways. Battle Mantra. Increased bonus mana range when above 50% to 2.4 mana second from 1.5 mana per second, so it's just more mana. Blood Catalyst. Increased mana regen to 17.5 seconds from 10 seconds for 10 seconds. So you get 17.5 mana per second for 10 seconds rather than 10 mana per second for 10 seconds. So a significant buff to Blood Catalyst. They also removed the critically wounded limitation. Charging Brute. Increased movement speed per stack to 20 ms from 10 ms, which is 20 movement speed from 10 movement speed. Increased buff duration to 7 seconds from 5 seconds. Added ability to move through units during the duration. That's actually pretty useful. So you kind of, the way Charging Brute works, if you don't know, is on unit kill you gain a stack of movement speed, which is now 20 movement speed rather than 10. That duration lasts for 7 seconds, but every time you get another stack, you get a every time you get a kill, you get another stack. So you would get 20, then you get a kill, you're at 40 movement speed, you get another kill, you're at 60, and so on, so on. I believe it caps out like 150 or something, and it now allows you to move through units. It wasn't picked up that much on Monolith, but it was a thing on Legacy, and I think they kind of want to bring it back. Whether this changes enough, I'm not too sure. Empyrean Mask. Increased amount of stats granted in all forms. Power increased to 24 from 18. Basic armor increased to 14 from 10.5. Ability armor increased to 8 from 6. And mana regen increased to 1.2 from 0.9. Now, Empyrean Mask was a card that was picked up on Legacy when it first came out, and then it just kind of disappeared. I actually forgot this card was in the game, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if this buff is significant to make it, make me want to pick it up. But, it's nice to see that some cards that aren't being picked up or aren't being used are getting some attention. They reduced the cost from Everglass from 6 CP to 5 CP. Font of the Rapture changed stats to 5% lifesteal, 6 power from 1.4 health regen, 0.3 mana regen, and 4% crit chance. It would always one of the things that it always wondered me, or I was always curious why Epic did this. They gave Font of the Rapture the basically the passive on Font of the Rapture is I think lifesteal will over shield you. So basically, if you had full health and then you got lifesteal, it would apply a shield worth 10% of your health, I believe. I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head. But then they gave that card base stats of health regen, mana regen, and 4% crit chance. Who the fuck is gonna use that? If you give it power, then yeah, people can put points into that, and lifesteal, yeah, it's useful. But no one's gonna use health regen or mana regen, and that card was exclusively for Sparrow pretty much because it was order, and you would only really want it on a carry. But anyways, I'm glad they've done something about it. Hinder Beast now works on jungle buffs, which now includes the green buff in addition to the river buffs. Increased basic attack slow to 10% from 5%. I believe Hinder Beast says that when you kill a river buff, then you can apply a slow on hit with basic attacks. But don't quote me on that, you should check it out for yourself. But a 10% slow is pretty decent with a river buff. It might be something for the jungler and mid laner to think about. Incessant Onslaught rework reduces active cooldowns by 0.2 seconds per basic attack hit. I believe that's when you take a hit, so that might be interesting. I don't know, I haven't really thought about that. 0.2 seconds per basic attack hit. I don't know who I would use it on, but it does seem quite interesting. Infinity Stream changed regen value scaler from current mana to missing mana. Okay. Increased base regen value to 3.6 mana from 2.4 mana regen. Okay, so if you don't know how Infinity Stream works, the way it currently works is the more mana you have, the more mana you would get back, right? So for example, you've got 90% of your mana, the 10% is missing, right? So if you got 90% of your mana, you would be getting, say, for example, 10 mana back per second. But if you had, say, 40% of your mana, you would only be getting, say, 5 mana per second, whereas, at 90 we're getting 10. But they've changed this the other way around. So I guess you get more mana based on how much you're missing. So if you're missing a lot of mana, well, you get a lot more mana back, which is actually pretty good. That's how I thought it should work anyways, but they obviously needed to tone down the amount of mana you get back. So that's pretty good for casters. It probably counts as Bellica as well, but remember that Affinity Stream is intellect. It's not a big deal considering Gideon, Gadget, Howard's, Bellica are all intellect, and I think FaZe now is intellect as well. But it's an interesting change. Mad Spore Sash. Increased burn radius from 300 to 500. Increased base damage to 12 plus 1.5 times player level from 10 plus player level. Okay, so I guess the radius is nice if we do some quick math here because, math is hard. Let me grab a calculator. So what we do is 1.5 times 15, 22.5 plus 12, 34.5 damage per tick in a radius of 500. It's okay. It's nothing great. At level 1, you're not doing anything, but that's 13.5. But, I don't know. I don't know if this is enough to Mad Spore Sash. I remember when it was a must-have on everyone. Is it a must-have now? I don't think so. Mending Bloom. Change stat to max mana from health regen. Increased mana regen to 6.6 mana per second from 3.8 mana per second for 15 seconds to yourself and nearby allies. So that's basically what Mending Bloom did or previously did. It just gave you mana regen to nearby allies for a set duration. Nano Drive grants plus 100 movement speed for 2.5 seconds, 14-second cooldown. Okay, I don't know if I would be picking that up, but anyways. Overflowing Gift, change stat to max health from mana regen, increased health regen to 9.5 health per second from 6 health per second to yourself and nearby allies for 15 seconds. This was a card some supports would pick up, but I think, 9.5 health per second is pretty decent. It might help against a Morogeshin lane. You've got, Quenching Scales, which is probably preferred compared to Overflowing Gifts, and now you've got Circle of Health. I don't know if Overflowing Gifts is going to be picked up, as much. Considering, 9.5 health, I think circular gives you pretty decent amount, and it's global and it lasts forever rather than 15 seconds. But I guess overflowing gifts does give you that burst. You got purity sensor, now costs 80 mana to cast. Cooldown increased to 120 seconds from 90 seconds. That's probably because Aurora is pretty much useless with purity sensor. Now at least you couldn't say, okay, hey, their Deca has no mana, so purity can't be up, or she used it and, you know, my ult's gonna come up before hers because the cooldown is 120 seconds. Radiant Mantle, they changed it the same as Madsport Sash, so I'm not gonna talk about that. Rally the Troops now costs 50 mana to cast, reduce cooldown to 35 seconds from 120 seconds, increased attack speed buff to 33 attack speed from 22 attack speed, so just an increase to the attack speed and a reduction in the cooldown, nothing crazy. Rocket Spike, reduced cost to 4 CP from 5 CP. Satori Cloak, increased armor shred duration to 2 seconds from 1.5 seconds. Scorpion Plate, increased duration to 10 seconds from 6 seconds, reduced cost to 5 CP from 6 CP, no longer shares cooldown with Splinter Bark Vest. I believe Scorpion Plate shredded armor, I think it was basic attack armor based on something. You'll have to look that one up, I'm not too sure. Shockwave, they've reworked the active, now deals 50 damage in a large radius around the hero, slowing enemies by 250 movement speed for 3 seconds, now costs 50 mana to cast. I remember when Shockwave was a must-have and it was a knock-up. Does this go far enough to do it? I don't know, but maybe with Steel coming back, this actually could be a good card for him. Siren Song, increase the slow magnitude to 60 from 40, reduce speed, slow speed buff duration from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. Splinter Bark Vest, which was similar to Scorpion Plate, increased duration to 10 seconds from 6 seconds, reduced cost to 5 CP from 6 CP, and no longer shares a cooldown with Scorpion Plate. Stabling, reduce base health cost to 15% from 20% and remove the critically wounded restriction too, but the active cannot be used if your health cost would result in a death. Stabling just allows you to teleport every 15 seconds, but at the cost of, well, now 15% of your base health. Stasis Gem has been reworked and is now a universal affinity card and reduced the cost to 5 CP from 7 CP. Wicked Stigma, rework ability to unique passive. Previously, Wicked Stigma would grant you a bit vision based when you hit someone with an ability, I believe, for a period of time. I think it was 6 seconds, but now ability hit grants vision of the target for 6 seconds. But I believe Wicked Stigma was previously an active and now it's a passive, which makes way more sense. Thermobond no longer activates from Deca's containment fence ability. You know, you could use Thermobond and then just run into it with like you'd have Thermobond on, run into a Deca containment fence, and Thermobond would keep stacking. You could get like 500 health. It was pretty insane, but I'm glad they've changed it. Tempest Pearl, reduced cooldown to 45 seconds from 60 seconds, now costs 50 mana to cast. If you don't know what Tempest Pearl does, it gives you a movement speed increase to you, yourself and nearby allies, I believe. And Traitor's Touch, increased bonus damage to 5% of target's current health from 3% of current target health, which is a pretty good card. It allows you to counter tanky heroes a lot more. A lot of card changes, some good, some bad, some I have no idea where they're going to fit. The, what card was it? Thermobond change, I think it needed to happen. Shockwave, interesting change there. Purity Sensor, good change there, I think. And then you got cards like Infinity Stream, that's an interesting change. And the introduction of cards that provide like Spell Vamp and Spellburn. I'm really looking forward to the direction that they're taking it. And patch 40 is going to be a shitload of content. Let's talk more about the general changes. Now the Loot Crate update. Loot Crate, they've added Aqua Default Phase, Cobalt Default Phase, Crawl Default Iggy, and Marine Default Iggy. They've added Revenant Mastery, added emotes, a Cloudbringer, Epic Rift, Prove It, and Hats Off. All, you know, whatever, not really too bothered about that. Not like I get anything but rep from Loot Crates anyways. They've changed some of the UI stuff, so switching to alternate PS4 controller configuration for new players, community tab, community pop-up, golden keys added. Actually, I wanted to see what these golden keys do. Let's have a look. Where is it? Okay, I think I might have talked about this at the start, but speaking of monthly vault rewards, one of the items that can be earned in the vault are now the new golden Loot Crate key. Fuck, can I read today? Golden key. Speaking of monthly vault rewards, One of the items that can be earned in the vault are the new golden loot keys. The golden key guarantees a rare item or above from the loot crate. Fuck you, why can't you make it epic or legendary or whatever? Like, rare is just bullshit. There's so much bullshit rare stuff in the loot crates that it's a joke. But okay, I'm not gonna complain because, you know, sometimes I do that too much and fuck me, right? Where were we? Okay, so back to the UI anyways. They've added monthly Mega Vault added to the in-game home screen. Rewards: Snakebite Murdoch Deep Sea Variation, Golden Loot Key, 3 damage chest. I want that Murdoch Deep Sea Variation, it sounds fucking badass. Daily quest: remove the following quests. I don't really care about those quests. There is now an animation when you receive new daily quest. Okay, fix an issue that caused daily quest show more credit than that to be earned. All reticles will turn red when you targeting a valid target. Okay, that makes sense. Damage number pops adjustment. Made numbers much smaller. Physical damage moves to the right and energy damage moves to the left. Okay. Crits are slightly bigger and pop up more. No more scaling numbers on the amount of damage. Okay, that's fine. Minion health bar tweaks. Disabled scaling on minion health bar. Faded out health bar background when not targeted. Thank you, that's fine. Adjustments to placement of health bar, recall and respawn UI. If players were using the alternative cross screen, is now default. New players will have this alternative, blah 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 blah. The boost indicator on the front end no longer glows gold even if no boosts are active. Adding bonus start event for when you start at a higher tin than bronze for the star chest or whatever. Agora. Updated stealth river buff to trigger the same shadow plane visuals as Kalari's Shadow Walk and Necroveil card. Minor tweaks to shadow plane processing to better fit with Monolith's updated visuals. War destruction visual effects improved. Minor visual polish and optimization on minion death effects and tower projectile impacts. Tower projectile impacts now leave less residual plasma particles hanging around. Nice, trying to get me with the big words, but I got him. Polish pass on minion jungle creature impact effects. Minions should no longer follow players into the jungle when aggroed at spawn. Yeah, that was so dumb. AI changes, don't really care. Audio fix for generic impact sound effect that plays when damaging another hero. Shadow plane sound added for purple buff and shadow plane card. The draft lobby should now play the front end music selection correctly. Gameplay fix, blah blah blah. Okay, additional hero changes. Aurora's ice footprint should now appear as intended. Feng Mao fixed for conversion shield, flashing effects on medium settings. Fixed material effects not working, blah blah blah. Fixed for Gadget not being able to use abilities after cancelling her ultimate. Okay, that sounds like something they should have fixed. Variations apply correctly to White Tiger Greystone's helmet. Thank you. I was wondering why the helmet always stayed the same color, but I guess that's a bug. Grux increased volume of sounds during recall and added grunts. Okay, what did they get, like Rick Ross to do that shit? Howitzer sounds updated. Primary shot is shorter. Primary explode is shorter. And volume slightly reduced. Fixed timing of reload. Yeah, Howitzer used to make a fuck ton of noise. Kwang. Improved animation timing for Kwang's Swordman style emote. Fixed an issue where Morogesh would be unable to activate Curse on her marked target if she attempted to mark a new target but failed because the hero was immune to the spell effect. Yeah, that happened to me when I was playing Morogesh. I couldn't fucking use the ability, so thank you. Narbash minor visual fix. Revenant fix where Revenant's hammer through his hat. Blah blah blah. Fixed hand cannon projectiles not impacting Rev when reflected by Yin. Okay, that was a big issue because what would happen was you would use your obliterate into a Yin ult, for example, which should reflect it back when you wouldn't take any damage. Fixed reload getting stuck when interrupted by Aurora's ult. Yeah, that was pretty game breaking. Fixed an issue where Sword would move to different positions on the back. Don't care about that. Twin Blast basic attack should now leave decals. Yin adjusted Yin whip audio to be less overpowering. Thank you, because that shit was loud as hell. Alright, so a lot of big changes. We covered a lot in this video and I know it was long. I am sorry, it's just so much to go through and it's better I do it all at once rather than making like 3 different videos. Unless you guys would prefer me to do 3 different videos, I don't know. But last but not least, I want to touch on the Greystone skin. I don't think I touched on it. Pretty basic skin, nice visuals, but again, you're giving a hero that doesn't really have many abilities and then you're giving him visual effect changes. Doesn't seem, you know, doesn't seem like, okay, fine, it's probably an easier one to do, so I can understand why they did it, but why not give a caster or Revenant like a tier 3, that, you know, actually like his Bloodborne one should have been a tier 3. They could have changed everything to purple. That would have been amazing. I don't know if I'm gonna get this Greystone one because I don't know, it just doesn't seem like a lot changed, if I'm honest. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If I had to sum up patch 40, I would say I like the changes. I'm liking the direction. A lot more heroes are now in contention, whereas the hero pool, I don't know, at the higher level it was kind of small compared to how many heroes you had. Not a lot of heroes were viable. Like Auroras wasn't viable, Steel wasn't viable, Deca was pretty much instant banned, Muriel usually wasn't viable, although she was picked up. So I'm liking the changes. I also like the new card changes. I think the card system does definitely need a rework, but these are the, you know, the stepping stones to that final rework, and then we get the big change. But yeah, I think I like this patch. I'm liking the direction. I'm looking forward to phase. Definitely going to introduce a lot of changes there with the repositioning, the new blind mechanic, and I could say that I'm looking forward to the future of Paragon and my YouTube career or hobby that I enjoy doing. It's definitely looking a lot more fun and attractive than, you know, the game was in a rough state a while back, and it's getting better. I still kind of don't like some things, and maybe I'll talk about them in another video because this is just dragging on. But anyway, smash that thumbs up button if you enjoyed this video. I know it was long, I'm sorry. Subscribe for all the latest Paragon content, and do let me know what you think of the patch in the comment section below. Until next time guys, peace.